Namaste, welcome back. Last week, we had an introduction of the 8th chapter. Only a couple of points. We don't want a long introduction because we are right jumping into chapter 8. So we said that this chapter is mainly an elaboration of a few technical terms introduced by Krishna on chapter 7, mainly focusing on Ishvara Upasana and also emphasizing how different components are interrelated each other, because he introduced a few technical terms. So there are 6 technical terms and one statement of Krishna created a question in Arjuna, and Arjuna raises 7 questions, and the answers of that 7 question is the 8th chapter. That is what we discussed. Interestingly, Krishna answers the first 6 questions in 2 verses, and the rest of the chapter is dedicated to that one topic: how a practicing yogi can keep his mind on Ishvara at the time of his departure. And when Krishna is trying to explain this particular topic, he tried to explain the idea of upasana. So let's get into the first topic. The first topic is Arjuna's 7 questions. So verse 1 and 2 is going to cover this 7 questions.
Ata ashtamadhyayah Arjuna uvacha Kim tad brahma kim adhyatmam Kim karma purushottama Adhibhutancha kim proktam Adhidaivam kim uchyate Adhyajna katham kotra Dehesmin Madhusoodhana Prayanakale cha katham Jneyyosi Adhyatmabhihi.
Before jumping into the verse, my pranams and salutations to Swami Brahmanandaji, head of Chinmaya Mission, Bangalore. His chanting is well known. His chanting actually became the de facto standard of the Bhagavad Gita chanting. So the verse 1 and 2 is essentially a series of rapid fire questions from Arjuna. Essentially what he did was he just took everything Krishna said in verse 29 and 30 and asked. So Arjuna said, what is Brahman? Kim tat Brahman? What is that Brahman? Tat Brahman means that Brahman. Kim Adhyatma? What is Adhyatma? Because mind you, these were the technical terms introduced by Krishna in the 7th chapter. So he's just asking because that terms didn't speak anything to him. So he wanted to understand, because if I say XYZ, if you don't know the meaning of that XYZ, that doesn't make anything. That is the fundamental thing in the communication. When I use a word, I need to make sure that you understand it. And if I don't understand it, I should ask questions and try to understand what exactly it is. Whether it is in life or it is in scripture. Gita gives that freedom. If Krishna introduces a term which we do not understand, Gita gives us that freedom to ask that question. So that's the whole idea. So what is Adhyatma? Kim karma? What is karma? Because even though we talked about karma yoga, in what context he is using the word karma here? Because Sanskrit is a context sensitive language. So you wanted to understand in what context you are using the word karma here. And then he addresses Krishna using a word. Purushottama is not a next question. It is just name of Krishna. So, O Purushottama, best among Purusha. What is that Brahman you talked? What is Adhyatma and what is karma? Then he continues. What is Atibhutam? Then Athidevam. Proktam means known as. What is known as Athidevam? And what is Athi, meaning Kim Uchyate? What is known as Atibhutam, Athidevam? So the first verse, what is Brahman? What is Adhyatma? What is Adhibhuta? What is karma? What is Brahman? what is Adhyatma, what is Karma, what is Adhibhuta, what is Adhideva. In the second verse, he tells what is Adhyajna, what is Adhideva, Adhiyajna, Adhibhuta, Adhideva, Adhiyajna. So this is what he said. And then finally he say, Prayana Kaleja Katham. So at the time of departure, Niyata Atma Pibihi, a practicing yogi. Niyata means one who has control over the mind. A practicing yogi, how can he keep his mind unto you? Is that possible? So this is the 7 questions Arjuna asked. This is the essence of verse 1 and 2. So I'm not going to answer, I'm not going to elaborate because Krishna himself is answering. So Shankaracharya don't even write a commentary for these 2 verses because the questions were very clear. So one point is in the chapter 3, and chapter 5, when Arjuna asked a question, we had some explanation because that question itself needed elaboration. Here the questions are very straightforward. So we are going to answer. But before we jump into the answer, Arjuna addressed Krishna using 2 names. Let's try to understand what exactly is the meaning of that names. One is Purushottama, the other one is Madhusoodhana. What is Purushottama? What is Madhusoodhana? So let's try to see what is Purushottama and what is Madhusoodhana. So let's try to see what is. So these were the Arjuna's 7 questions. What is Brahman? What is Adhyatma? What is Karma? What is Adhibhuta? What is Adhideva? What is Adhyajna? And then how a practicing yogi or practiced yogis can keep their mind on you at the time of leaving the body. These were the 7 questions. Now let's try to understand what is Madhusoodhana and what is Purushottama. So if you look at the Purana in Mahabharata, in Devi Purana, in Vishnu Purana, there is a story. When the universe got manifested, per the vision of Vishnu Purana, Vishnu got manifested. And when Vishnu got manifested, 2 demons also got manifested. They were known as Madhu and Kaitapa. And these Madhu and Kaitapa had a fight with Lord Vishnu because these Madhu and Kaitapa was a threat to the humanity. And whenever there is a threat to the humanity, Lord will come and destroy that. And that they were destroyed, and that is why Krishna or Vishnu is known as Madhusoodhana, the destroyer of the demon Madhu. This is the Puranic meaning. So don't think that Lord has no business but to kill people. But so we need to understand what exactly it means. So when you look at the commentary of Shankaracharya of Vishnu Sahasranama, he elaborates that. So let's see the spiritual viewpoint of this name. That is exactly what Shankara did in his Vishnu Sahasranama's commentary. So let's try to understand. So what is the spiritual significance, a spiritual perspective of Madhusoodhana? The great commentator of Bhagavad Gita, Madhusoodhana Saraswati, also clarifies this in his commentary called Gudhartha Deepika. So Madhu symbolically represents the karmic impressions in the individual. Karmic impressions what? Like whenever I do an action, what happens? I get a result. Obviously, I get a result. Along with the result, I get some impressions in my mind. Let's say that if I drink a coffee, of course I am enjoying the coffee, the taste of the coffee. Along with the taste of coffee, what I'm getting? I'm getting some impressions in my mind. 1 coffee is fine. 2 coffee is fine. 100 coffee, 200 coffee. After that, what happens? Automatically that time comes that impressions will push and pull me towards the coffee. You know that. That is why we say this is what is called habit. Neurologically speaking, a neural circuits will be formed. And what the problem here is what? Sometimes these impressions or the habits, bad habits or the negative habits, or the binding desires will push me or pull me from the path of dharma. So I want to do something, I need to do something, but I feel to do something else. So I don't have the freedom in action. For example, I'm so much addicted to junk food. What I need to do is what? Healthy eating. What I wish to do is what? Healthy eating. And what is the dharmic way there? Healthy eating. But what I feel to do? Junk food. So there is always a collision between what happens? What I need to do versus what I feel to do. So do I have freedom in action? Not at all. This is the problem. So this is the impact of Madhu on me. Madhu literally means honey. So that's where it means. It binds you. It stick you, right? With these habits. So Ishvara, or the Lord, in the form of a teacher, in the form of these teachings, what he does? He destroys this demon. Demon means this karmic impression which binds me. So Ishvara, who destroys this karmic impression by which weapon he uses? Sudarshanam. What is Sudarshanam? Sudarshanam means what? It is good vision. So with the Sudarshanam, this karmic tendencies will be, meaning it is eliminated, and because of that he is known as Madhusoodhana. So please don't take this story and think that he one more killing in his portfolio. Like if you really look at Krishna's portfolio, how many killing he has done? Every killing is these type of tendencies. So when this is the thing we need to tell our children, he is not just no other business and try to kill all the people. Because we have seen this in the 7th chapter also, right? Who attains the asura bhava? Dushkritikaha. When I am driven by these binding desires, when I am driven by these adharmic tendencies, what happens? An asura is born in my mind. So Ravana is in my mind. Hiranyaksha is in my mind. There is a Ramayana called Adhyatma Ramayana. Where exactly that Ramayana is happening? Within my mind. This is what is Madhusoodhana. Try to understand the significance. This is very important. So let's move. So the next one is Purushottama. Who is Purushottama? That is another name of Vishnu, which is elaborated in the Vishnu Sahasranama. So Vishnu Sahasranama talks about Vishnu as Purushottama. So we need to understand who is Purusha. Then we need to understand who is Purusha Uttama, the best among Purusha. So if you take the model of Sankhya or Vedanta to that extent, there is an overlap here. An individual jiva is a compound. If you take me, I have a perishable matter in me and an imperishable consciousness in me. And that consciousness in me is a reflection of that supreme consciousness. We already talked about that. There is a sun and there is a reflection of that sun in a bucket of water. So the reflection of the sun happens in a reflecting medium, and that reflecting medium is the body mind. If you take the example of the bucket, water and the sun, the bucket represents the physical body, the water represents the subtle body, and the reflection represents the Jivatma, and that reflection is known as Purusha. And as many Jivas are there, that many Purushas are there. But who exactly gives the existence and to that Purusha? It is the Paramatma. So the Paramatma is known as the best among the Purusha. That is the Supreme Consciousness. So that Supreme Consciousness which is the best among all the reflected consciousness, because the reflected consciousness has an existence only because of the original consciousness. So keep these terms in your mind. One is the original consciousness, which represents the Paramatma. Then the reflected consciousness, Jivatma. Reflected consciousness is a reflection of the original consciousness, Paramatma, in the reflecting medium, which is the body and the mind. If you really think about that bucket, water, and the sun and the reflected sun example, this will be very clear. And this is a very fundamental teaching. You need to understand Vedanta. If you want to understand Vedanta, you need to understand. So Purushottama signifies the Supreme Purusha, indicating the transcendental truth beyond the matter and beyond the reflected consciousness, which gives existence to matter and which gives existence to the reflecting consciousness. And that is Purushottama. I'm just elaborating these two names just to give you the significance of Vishnu Sahasranama. We just chant, right? Vishwam Vishnu Ruvashatkaro Bhuda Bhavya Bhavat Prabhu. Each term needs a big elaboration. And if you elaborate each term, it's a pointer pointing to the absolute. So Shankaracharya in his commentary, he tells, infinite cannot be described. That is why it's infinite. The infinite cannot be described, but it can be indicated through some pointers. Each of these 1,000 names are 1,000 pointers. Each of these 1,000 names are 1,000 pointers, which pointing to the absolute reality. That is what it is. So Purushottama and Madhusoodhana, we saw. So let's continue. One more point. Prayana Kale. For death, the word used is Prayana Kale, such a beautiful metaphor for the final journey. Right? It's a symbolic representation of the transition from life to the next stage. Right? We talked about this, right? There are two possible paths. If you are not a Jivan Mukta, there are two possible paths. One is you can attain the Krama Mukti, or you can attain reincarnation, transmigration. So the whole idea of using this word is we typically take death as what? An end. A full stop. So this vision tells you that death is an end of this manifestation, but you continue to exist. So just wanted to mention that. These were the key points on the first two verses. Okay, so the topic 2 is Krishna's answer for question 1 to 6. This is covered in verse 3 and verse 4. So we are going to see verse 3.
Shri Bhagavanuvacha Aksharam Brahma Paramam Svabhavo Adhyatma Bhuta Bhavodbhavakaraha Visarga Karma Sanjitaha.
So the whole theme of these verses, he is going to unveil or unfold 3 answers. Brahman, Adhyatma and Karma. Remember, 7 questions. What is Brahman? What is Adhyatma? What is Karma? What is Adhibhuta? What is Adhideva? What is Adhyatma? And then how a yogi can keep his mind on Lord at the time of departure. It's not very difficult. If you think about this, you don't need a reference at all. You can easily do that. So he say, Brahman is the ultimate reality. Aksharam Brahma Paramam. Param Aksharam Brahma. So Brahman equal to ultimate reality, which is infinite and eternal. Sobhava Adhyatma Uchyate. The nature of a human being is Adhyatma. That is what is Adhyatma. And then Bhuta Bhava Udbhavakara. Visarga Karma Sanjitaha. Know that the karma is something which basically it is the actions or offering made by all the beings leading to the manifestation of all the names and forms. Don't worry, like when you exactly translate, it is difficult to understand, but when you unfold each verse, it will be difficult. So essentially understand that he is answering three topics: what is Brahman, what is Adhyatma, and what is karma. So let's see that each topic in detail. So first thing is, what is Brahman? We all hear about this term Brahman. First of all, Brahman is not Brahma. A lot of people think that it is Brahma. So that's why Swami Chinmayananda always used to say Brahma Ji. When you add that prefix Ji, it means Mr. Brahma. It is Creator Brahma. Creator Brahma is different from the Brahman. Brahma also means Veda. That is another meaning. So this word Brahma is a context sensitive word, which can have different meaning according to the context. Here, Krishna uses the word Param Brahma, the supreme Brahma, absolute reality. The word Brahma means it's a superlative degree. It is beyond everything. You say that a mountain is big, that means this is bigger than that. You say that the space is vast, this is vaster than that. So this is the biggest, the widest, the vast reality of the universe. So he say, Aksharam Paramam Brahma. Akshara means what? Imperishable. When you add a prefix A means it is imperishable. The opposite. Double meaning, sometimes you see the negative usage in Sanskrit. It's not a good use in English, but Sanskrit is known for that. Sometimes you see double negatives also. So Aksharam, meaning that which never perishes. So unchanging, eternal existence, beyond the constraints of time and space. Very interesting. Everything else is going to be, meaning everything else has a beginning and everything else has an end. We may say that the universe, yes, the universe has a beginning and therefore it will have an end. It may be billions of years or trillions of years. That doesn't matter. Even that will come to an end. But the underlying reality that supports the whole universe, that provides existence and consciousness to this universe, that is Brahman. So, what is that fundamental cause? What is that absolute reality from which the universe has emerged? Know that that is the Brahman. It is immutable. It is devoid of any mutation. It is devoid of any transformation. And there is absolutely, it won't perish at all. We heard this in the second chapter of the Gita, right? Achedyaha, right? Achedyoyam, adahyoyam. You cannot burn it. Nityaha, sarvagataha, sthanuhu, achalaha, sanatanaha. All these terms are used about this absolute reality. This is what we call it as God. This is the para prakriti we talked about in the previous chapter. So this absolute reality, in the second chapter commentary, Shankaracharya tells even God cannot destroy this absolute reality. So that is the word language Shankaracharya used. So this reality, which do not have a name and a form, it is self-effulgent and it is not dependent upon anything, and everything else is dependent upon that. It doesn't dependent upon anything for its existence. For example, you may say that the golden ornament is dependent upon gold for its existence. Right? If you take the gold away from the gold ornament, nothing exists. If you take the atoms away, none of the matter exists. Right? But Everything in the universe dependent on Brahman, the reality. So don't think that this is a philosophical concept. There is a logical, scientific explanation for this. Einstein has spent all his lifetime, the last 30 years of his lifetime, to search for that unified field. So thus, if there is that unity in the universe, which provides an explanation, which is the uncaused cause, we can call it as, because the language becomes difficult here. You cannot describe it because it is beyond your comprehension. This absolute reality is the God. So this is the vision of gods in the Veda, God in the Veda. There is no multiple God, there is only Brahman, the reality. And it sustains and it gives existence to everything in this universe. The matter is a manifestation from the Brahman. Everything, whatever you can think about in this universe, is a manifestation of Brahman. And this Brahman lies in pure consciousness. The essence of Brahman is pure consciousness. That is the only, because I am conscious of myself. And that consciousness is the nature of Brahman. And in referred by Upanishad with three things. Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam Brahma. Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam Brahma. That is what the Upanishad tells. Satyam means what? The absolute truth. That which cannot be negated. Abhaditam Satyam, right? Trikala Abhaditam Satyam. That which cannot be negated in past, present and future is Satyam. That is the absolute. Then what is that? Jnanam. It has infinite knowledge because it's not an inert, insentient matter. And Anantam, it is boundless. Those who are interested, Swami Sarvapriyananda had a beautiful talk called God Defined. He just explains these three terms. Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. That is the nature of Brahman, reality. There is nothing other than this superior to this Brahman. The one above and beyond, there is nothing else, is Brahman. And Brahman do not have any death or birth. All that is Brahman's characteristics.
Recording in progress.
So this is Brahman, the absolute reality. Now let's proceed to the next topic. Now, the next question, what is Adhyatma? Adhyatma is defined, Krishna defines Adhyatma as Sobhava. Sobhavo Adhyatma Uchyate. Aksharam Brahma Paramam. Sobhavo Adhyatma Uchyate. Swa means what? My own. Bhava means what? Manifestation. What exactly is the real manifestation in me? That is Sobhava. And Adhyatma, the word has two things. If you can split that into two. Adhyatma means Adhi plus Atma. Atma here means body. Please, Sanskrit is a context-sensitive language. Depending upon the context, the meaning will vary. Adhi means connected to. That into which the body is connected to is essentially the consciousness in me. So, the absolute reality Brahman resides in every body as existence and consciousness. My body is the existence aspect of the Brahman, whereas my consciousness is a direct manifestation of the consciousness of Brahman. So, Sobhava refers to that apparent enclosed consciousness. Remember, it is not an enclosed consciousness. The consciousness is not limited by body, but the reflection of that consciousness happens in the body. Therefore, you think that the consciousness is particularly limited by the body. That reflected consciousness, which is apparent enclosed consciousness, is nothing but the Brahman. So, Sobhava represents Brahman residing as an individual. So at the macro level, you call it as Brahman. At the micro level, you call it as Adhyatma. That's all. So when at the macro level, the whole manifestation is known as Brahman. At the micro level, it is known as Adhyatma. So essentially, the Adhyatma and the Brahman are one and the same. So Adhyatma refers to that inner consciousness, which is nothing but the absolute reality Brahman. So this is the second thing. So Krishna first defined what is Brahman. Brahman at the macro level, Adhyatma at the micro level, and essentially these two are the same. So let's try to see that. So manifestation of Brahman, Adhyatma and Paramatma. So see, at the macro level, the whole universe has an existence and there is a consciousness for there, and that is known as Paramatma. And the individual level, of course, there is a manifestation called body mind, and that is known as Jivatma or the Adhyatma. And you call the God as Tat, and you call you as Tvam. And essentially, this verse is again a sutra or an indication of a Mahavakya. Tattvamasi. So Madhusoodhana Saraswati in his Gudartha Deepika comments, the Brahman represents the Tatpada, Tat Vyakhyanam or the Tatpada explanation, whereas the Adhyatma refers to the Twampada. Essentially, Tat Tvam Asi. Thou are that. You are the absolute reality, Brahman. The essence of you equal to the essence of absolute reality. That's it. So we defined two terms. One is Aksharam Param Brahma. Then we said Adhyatma. Now the third topic, karma. What is karma? So we are going to unveil the essence of karma. So karma is defined as Bhuda Bhava Bhavakara Visarja. Not intimidating with a lot of Sanskrit, but just this is exactly the definition he used. So it refers, Visarja here means what? An offering. Literally means even throwing away. That's it. So it refers to an offering of one's abilities and actions. Whatever action you do, they are called karma. And what is the nature of this karma? The next word is confusing, right? He tells Visarja karma, that is understandable. Whatever you do is karma. So the word karma, karana, all these things are there, right? Whatever you do with a karana is called karma. That is another definition. Not here, elsewhere in the Bhagavad Gita it comes in. Karana means what? An instrument. Instrument of your body, not the external instrument. External instrument we call it as upakarana. That which enhances the capability of karana is called upakarana. A telescope is an upakarana, whereas your eyes is a karana. That is the difference. So the telescope will enhance the power of a karana of my eye. That is why it is called upakarana. So upakarana, karana. So whatever you do, so you see something, that is a karma. Right? You taste something, that is a karma. You walk, that is a karma. You do something with your hand, that is a karma. The karma's definition goes further. Not just the bahya karana. If you think, that is also karma, because it is a karana, it's a karana you do with your antakarana. It's a karma you do with the antakarana. So all that comes under the broad definition of karma. Now, how in the world that becomes the cause of the manifestation of all being? These two are not connectable, correct? Very simple. The explanation of karma seems to be very simple. But how that karma, so you can see here, right, in the slide, you can see any actions you do is a karma. But you need to understand a little bit of law of karma. Law of karma tells me that any action I do, it gives a direct result and an indirect result. Drishtaphala, Adrishtaphala, a visible result and an invisible result. Let's say that I'm I'm stealing some money from somebody. What is the Drishtaphala? Let's say that I stole $100 from somebody. Drishtaphala is I became richer by $100. And that fellow became poorer by $100. And there could be other Drishyaphalas also. But what is the Adrishyaphala? It creates an impression in me. And that goes to the bucket of what? Like Agami Karma. And at the time of death, it is added to the pool of karma which is called Sanchita Karma. And what happens? The Sanchita Karma has a pool of karma. A subset of that is going to determine the next birth. So that is why Krishna said, any karma you do, it become an indirect cause for your next birth. And collective action of all the beings in the universe. Mind you, only conscious beings. Only conscious action. So don't think, meaning animals' action is not going to impact the karmic cycle. Only conscious action will determine the karma. So collective action of all the being is going to determine the evolution of the universe. How the universe is moving. So that is why he said, Pudha Bhava Bhavakara Visarga Karma Sanjitaha. So this karma is the action performed by all the living beings, which is going to indirectly determine his own future course of action. And collectively the actions performed by all the beings put together is going to determine the evolution of the universe. So that is why Bhuda Bhava Bhavakara. And this law of karma is governed properly. You can escape from the law of land, but this law of karma you cannot escape. It's well programmed and you will get it. So this is what is the essence of karma. So 3 questions answered. What is Brahman? What is Adhyatma? What is karma? So let's continue. So one more point before we close. What is that? What is Vedic karmas? Because whenever we hear karma in the scriptures, it symbolically it refers to the Vedic ritual. So in the ancient time period, right, these Vedic rituals were symbolically represents the concept of karma. How a Vedic ritual is performed, right? A performer offer the oblations to a sacred fire dedicated to a particular deity, like it would be a Indra or a Varuna or a whoever it is. That is what happens. So these performance, right, the performance of offering into the fire, that is known as Visarga, the offering. That is the technical term. So all these elaborate rituals are there. It is a symbolic representation. And this ritual also can have a Drishtaphala and an Adrishtaphala. What is the Drishtaphala? You may get rain, you may get crops, you may get a son or a daughter, you may get wealth. There are everything there is a ritual in the Purva Bhaga of the Veda, which is not relevant anymore, right? It is that ancient worldview where people do, for anything and everything they used to do the rituals. It's just another means of pursuing Bhoga and Aishwarya. Who said that? I didn't say. Krishna said. Yamimam pushpitam vacham prapatanti vipaschidaha veda vadarada partha na anyat arthi idadidaha. Then he say, why people perform these rituals? Kamatmana, with the desire of getting something. Why they do? Bhogaishwarya gatim prati. For bhoga, enjoyment, Aishwarya, overlordships. That is what happens. So this Vedic karmas are a symbolic representation of our karma. And this Vedic ritual also can be done in the form of karma yoga. It can be done for seeking a particular results. So even that Vedic ritual will have the same thing. If you have a binding desire there, that is going to bind you. So this is very important to understand these Vedic rituals. When scriptures talk about these rituals, don't think that it is far away, removed from the life. It is part of the life. It is a symbolic representation. When we do not understand this symbolism, we get confused. That's it. So that covers the 3 verses we wanted to cover. We are perfectly on time. So recap. The first thing is Arjuna's 7 questions. What is Brahman? What is Adhyatma? What is karma? What is Adibhuta? What is Adhideva? What is Adhyatma in the body? And how a practiced yogi can keep their mind on you at the time of leaving the body. These are the 7 questions. This is verse 1 and 2. And verse 3, we saw what is Brahman. The answer is Brahman, it is the indestructible and the supreme being. What is Adhyatma? It is the true self of human being, which is essentially the Brahman. Answer 3, what is karma? The act of offering, which causes the manifestation of all the being. That is karma.